Now on HTV, we're off to Austria.
Confusion reigns at Silverstone as Michael Schumacher controversially wins the British Grand Prix. That's the pits, say McLaren, who've launched an appeal and remain very upset.
I hope that whatever the outcome of the appeal process on Monday is, that it's a sporting outcome and one that's fair for everybody involved.
Race 10, the Austrian Grand Prix on the A1 ring at Spielberg. Beautiful setting, but Silverstone-style weather. It is absolutely hurling it down, and the circuit is getting a soaking. The rain really following us around at the moment. Welcome to the A1 ring. Remember last year we had a fabulous race here as Formula One returned to Austria for the first time in 10 years. Jacques Villeneuve was the man who dominated the weekend. Pole position, a record lap and a maximum 10 points. It'll come as no surprise to you regular viewers. Villeneuve, the world champions, on his way from Williams to spearhead the new British-American racing team next season. But as for Michael Schumacher, he's staying put at Ferrari. He's signed a 4-year deal worth £25 million a year, and Schumacher will double that with endorsements. He remains the only man to have won a Grand Prix sitting in the pits, although as we've been hearing, that victory at Silverstone is still subject to the McLaren appeal to be held in Paris on Monday, when the performance of the Silverstone stewards will also be scrutinised. Still a bit confused? Listen carefully now to Tony Jardine.
Noah was considering relaunching the Arc as just 10 cars were left trying to surf the Silverstone waves. Even leader Hakkinen had lost touch with the tarmac, aquaplaning over a river at Bridge Corner, yet somehow steering the damaged McLaren boat back on course to stay in the lead. 3 laps later, Schumacher committed an offence as he passed Alexander Wurz under a stationary yellow flag. On the next lap, out came the pace car, which would bunch up the field and play into Schumacher's hands. But in the confusion, notice of the German's misdemeanor was not passed from race control to Ferrari until 28 minutes later on lap 57. A team have to be notified of any penalty within 25 minutes of it occurring. This wasn't done. The pace car disappeared, then came the Ferrari-McLaren shootout in the dying laps, but the red mist in Mika's mirrors soon enveloped him as he ran off at Beckett's. The red rain baron was through. At the Ferrari pit, boss Jean Todt was trying to decipher a wet note from the stewards which cited 2 rules. Either way, it was a 10-second penalty, either to be added to Schuey's overall time or taken in the pits. Todd played safe and called the German in, legally within 3 laps of receiving official notice, but cleverly on the last lap, so that Schumacher crossed the finish line in the pit lane, which is deemed part of the track, thereby winning the race, and not Mika Hakkinen, who thought he'd won. The penalty had not been displayed on the official computer screens as it should, plus the penalty notice had been served outside the 25 minutes limit since the offence had occurred, so it was null and void anyway, which is why McLaren's protest was rejected at the time. The stewards blundered in carrying out the correct procedures within a legal time frame, so it's not just David Batty who can't take a penalty, it's Michael Schumacher as well.
I'll tell you what, our race director Keith McKenzie did a fantastic job in the rain at Silverstone to give you all those pictures. It's sink or swim for us with the Austrians today. We're all right up here, Tony, aren't we? At least we've got a roof over our heads. Just going back to what you were saying there, I mean, it's tough to second guess what might happen in Paris on Monday, but what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all,
Ferrari did all they could to try and take that penalty. It was served very late, so they did all they could. I think that the stewards will get into hot water over this one. If they find against Ferrari, then this thing could run and run with counter appeals and so on. So I think they want to nip that in the bud quite quickly, but clearly the stewards are to blame.
Yeah. Where do you stand on this sort of conspiracy theory that Formula One is grouping behind Ferrari? Everybody wants Ferrari to win and nobody wants McLaren.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go with that at all, don't subscribe to that theory at all, but obviously Ron Dennis feels that Ferrari get away with more than most. I think what he would want to get out of this appeal is more consistency from the stewards in the future, and that's the most likely scenario that I can think of at the moment.
Okay, let's just remind you how things stand as we enter the 10th race of the season. 7 to go. Schumacher with that hat-trick of wins. He's cut the gap to just 2 points behind Hakkinen, and Eddie Irvine really putting the squeeze on David Coulthard for that third place, and the Benettons 5th and 6th. Okay then, where does David Coulthard stand in all this? He's picked up 1 point from a possible 40 in the last 4 races. He really has got a huge gap to make up, but he went pretty well here last year, finishing second. His frustration boiled over at Silverstone. Here he is with James Allen.
David Coulthard started the British Grand Prix a disappointing 4th on the grid, but there was one high point. Not too many people put a move like this on Michael Schumacher, especially in the wet. At the stop, he took on fresh intermediate tyres when arguably full wets for what he was looking for. As the rain grew heavier, he spun out. The figures tell the story best. Just 1 point scored in the last 4 races.
I've had 3 mechanical problems in those races, and I've had one mistake in my part in Silverstone, and that's those sort of run of bad luck, if you like, is what makes the difference between going for a championship and not. And at the moment, you have to say it's not my year.
26 points behind Mika going into this race. That's 3 clear wins you need ahead of him. What's going on inside the head? What's your thinking on this at the moment?
It won't be the end of the world, or the end of my world, if I don't win the championship this year. You know, if I do, of course, I'm going to be very happy. But if I don't, then I'm not suddenly going to think that I've been a big failure. You know, there's a lot of things that go to winning the championship. You've got to have a good car, you've got to drive well, you've got to have luck and reliability. And at the moment, you know, I've been missing out a little bit now.
You're very good at sort of analysing and compartmentalising successes and failures and putting them behind you. But on a human level, just give us an idea of the disappointment you felt about Silverstone, particularly in front of the home fans.
Well, see, that's the problem I have. You know, I think that some people would criticise me for not being emotional or not really, you know, think I was a company man and not being open about disappointments. But, you know, clearly at Silverstone I was very, very disappointed and very vocal in my anger and frustration at my mistake and the situation I found myself in. But given that was 2 weeks ago, I can't feel that emotion now. So to try and put into words for you is very difficult because it seems so far, you know, so long ago that all I'm thinking about now is driving the car tomorrow on this track, having fun in Austria, doing a Grand Prix and trying to get a win.
It was quickest in the second practice session this morning. He needs a good one here. But what about these conditions, Tony? We have never seen conditions like this for a qualifying session.
No, this is manna from heaven, isn't it, for Michael Schumacher? He will absolutely be loving this. What they won't want is it to dry out a little bit towards the end, so they've got to go on to intermediate tyres. I can't see slicks at this stage because it's really closing in. But like Silverstone, they won't be able to see their hands in front of them, let alone any yellow flags, as Schumacher clearly didn't. So this is a day for the brave. The skills will be shown now. It's a sort of a level playing field. We'll see the really great drivers' performances. I'm looking forward to this.
We all are looking forward to the next hour. Let me just tell you exactly where we are. The A1 ring, it's the old Österreich ring, set in the mountain range, the Styrian Mountains, around 140 miles southwest of Vienna. And Martin Brundle now has a few pointers for you on the track itself.
Turn 1, the clearest overtaking opportunity. Arrive at 180 miles an hour, but you leave it until 70 metres before the apex, before braking down. The weight transfer goes forward and you can be desperately late on the brakes. You need to be doing 45 miles an hour here just on the apex. Even the very best of them can get it wrong.
Watch Michael Schumacher locking a front wheel, taking a trip across the gravel trap, but recovering to the racetrack to head towards turn 2. Another story to tell there for him. He's overtaking Frentzen under the yellow flag in last year's race. He had a stop-and-go penalty in the pits for that.
Yet another uphill 180-mile-an-hour entry, and a do-or-die effort like that will bring you through this very tight 40-mile-an-hour corner. Sometimes it works out well, and another time it ends in tears.
Here's Lacey and Irvine fighting over the same piece of tarmac. They touch. Up in the air goes Lacey, and they're both out of last year's race. No such problem for Fisichella's Benetton. We're on board, heading down towards the Gosser curve. A big stop, down to second gear, 55 miles an hour, and then sweeping through the ride up to 160 before the Niki Lauda curve. You'll be looking for fourth gear there, and 95 miles an hour through the apex, running wide up the curve for another sprint down to the Gerhard Berger curve. 140 on the way in, speed scrubbing off to 110. Over the curve, the track opens up. The speed through the last corner, about 95 miles an hour, is totally dictated by the curb, the drain cover and the big bump. Create some tippy-toe moments around the outside of the exit, but some great overtaking opportunities along the start-finish straight. Let me tell you, your body knows all about 71 laps around this place.
I like the circuit. To be honest, it's not my favorite circuit. No, it's got two less fast corners, which I normally like, really, the fast ones. It's a bit slippery, but it changes a lot throughout the weekend.
Bert's carrying Austrian hopes. Very, very different conditions to those that Martin was talking in. It remains exceptionally wet here. Okay, let's join Louise Goodman. She's caught up with the F1 headline makers. Michael Schumacher staying with Ferrari. Jacques Villeneuve heading for British-American racing.
It's a pretty bold move. They've got no experience in Formula 1. Does that not worry you?
Well, the team is new, but the people aren't new. The people within the team have a lot of experience in Formula 1. And there's also people with new ideas, and I think that is needed.
Meanwhile, Michael Schumacher has been confirmed at Ferrari until 2002 in a deal rumoured to be worth £20 million a year to the German.
A lot of people expecting Ferrari offered me the highest money of all. That's not really true, but they offered me the best prospect for the future.
20 million, 25 million, it doesn't really matter. And does those two moves, or one non-move and one move, surprise you at all, Tony?
A little bit. I felt that Jacques might have thought very carefully about leaving Williams, a very, structured team, very stable team. We're obviously going to get it together, although they're in transition. I believe there was a money factor, a shareholding factor, and the fact that a team is going to be built around him had enormous appeal. Plus his mate Craig Pollock in charge there. I think he's going to be ruling the roost, and that's what attracted him.
Okay, Tony, let's have a word with a man who normally plays his sport for quite a lot of cash as well in the dry. It's Stephen Hendry from the World of Snooker talking now to James Allen.
Tell you what, Jim, it's Grimsville, Arizona down here, absolutely chucking it down. Stephen Hendry, you've picked a bit of a strange race to come to.
Good Scottish weather, though.
It is good Scottish weather. Now, presumably David Coulthard's a big mate of yours, and presumably you're right behind him, are you?
I've met him a couple of times, yeah. I mean, obviously for Scotland it'd be brilliant if he did well, but obviously my allegiances lie obviously people today.
You've been hanging out with the Jordan team this weekend. You get on well with Damon Hill?
Yeah, very well. I mean, he's a great bloke, yeah, and obviously did very well this morning, and the rain's thrown it up in the air a bit.
Good luck.
Thanks very much.
Well, right on cue. That rain started, around about half an hour ago. It is showing no signs of slackening off. The qualifying hour is round the corner. It's going to be very interesting.